Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the chapter number 9 highlights of the Dquad Fixation Tournament in the Pro League of my favorite simulator, your favorite simulator, Liftoff. This is your boy Abdul bringing you all of the happenings in chapter number 9 and giving you a heads up for the upcoming chapter number 12 extravaganza invitation only race in which pilots will compete for that year-long sponsorship from Dquad themselves. That's right, the winner of the overall Dquad Fixation series of tournaments is going to win a one-year real-world sponsorship from Dquad, and of course a series of pilots over the course of the year have already won and still have yet to win some Dquad fixation frames. If you can get yourself to the top of the leaderboards in your favorite simulator, my favorite simulator, Liftoff, we're on board right now with the master of floater, Honk 83, showing off a new creation. Oh yeah, Honk is back. This is the Flow Cube and you really want to check it out. It's got a few different levels to it, a few different race lines that you can try, which are at a different level of easy, medium and hard. So some great fun for everybody is going to be included there. Let's take a quick look at what the overall standings look like as we go into chapter number 10 with chapter 9 already in the books, and then we'll take a look at some of the contenders who are on the race line to make it to that invitation only chapter 12. Here we go. So here is that overall tournament ranking leaderboard, and it's looking almost the same as it did last month with one important little climb up. You guys remember from chapter 8 highlights, I was telling you there was an opportunity for a bunch of pilots to break their way into the top 10. We see Mr. D edging out NAFPV for that number 10 spot, and still a bunch of competition for those last couple of spots, number 9, number 10, number 8, pretty close together, and pilots like Any, Kira, Doc G, Tech and Redex FPV have a great opportunity to try and make their way into those chapter 12 standings. In the meantime, on the other end, at the top of the leaderboard, we've got Finzi holding true, running his way towards a 100-point run. He is still able to do that. Enough races still left in the fixation series of tournaments. G-Man tight on his tail, not gonna make it to that 100, but still an absolutely fantastic score of 75. I don't think anyone is going to be able to push him off that number 2 spot simply because there aren't enough points in the game left. Number 3, Fusel at 51 points, consistent throughout the tournaments. We don't have a number 1 win out of him. We have a number 2, but you can see he's consistently scored points throughout this series of tournaments. That is the way to get to the top. Consistency is king, as is known by our 30 in 30 compadre FPV Fly at number 4 with 24 points, solidly in position for that chapter 12 finale. Though we missed him in this chapter, we didn't get a finish from him or from Master Mito at 20 points. Though we did get a finish from Shah FPV, the prodigy, 14 years old from Pakistan, 20 points. Very exciting to see what the young man can bring up. Dapaka, Revu, Com, Clark Cobb and Mr. D bringing up the bottom of that leaderboard. We may see some of these names change. You can make it happen. So pick up your radio, click on your Liftoff and get in on that Pro League action. Let's see how the pilots did in chapter number 9. Okay, so taking a look at 7 pilots who were part of chapter number 9 and are on our leaderboard for going into chapter number 12. Starting off with a number 11 finish, missing out by barely 2 seconds on that number 10 spot, FPV Fly. We see him flowing on through the cube over here, and a pretty locked in kind of a line, but we don't see his throttle all the way up to the top. That is something that we're used to seeing with Mr. FPV Fly. We know that he believes in throttle for that win, and the only right level of throttle is all the throttle in Mr. Fly's opinion. So definitely we can see that he didn't have quite enough of a chance to dial in his throttle for this run, but you can see from the spirals and those locked in corkscrews that boy has some skills, and he's definitely a pilot that we're going to want to watch out for when we're in that Chapter 12 finale and everything is on the line with the top pilots from across the world. Next up, we're going to move on to Mr. Fusel, who finished number 6 in Chapter 9. And is number 3 in the overall leaderboards. Fusel, again, consistent, pulling it out by just 2 seconds, less than 2 seconds really, above the fly. And you can see that difference in his throttle stick, right? While fly was a little bit smoother, the moves felt a little bit better chained together when we were on board with fly, and we've got just a little bit of hesitation, just a little bit of the break and flow every now and then, just here and there, not consistently for Fusel. But what we can see is an extra 10% of throttle. Look at that throttle stick at the bottom there, guys. There's an extra 10% on board with Fusel, and that extra little 10% made up for stuff like the little glitches in flow, like that little breath that he took over there, and put him into the number 10 spot, making sure that he got points for this chapter of the tournament as well. Next up is Mr. D, finishing number 5 in this chapter and fighting his way up to number 10 in the overall leaderboards, making him eligible for that Chapter 12 finale. Now, Mr. D is a known pilot when it comes to the Liftoff racing scene, a name that is very familiar in the top of the leaderboards, be it the Liftoff Pro League or track times, and you can see why that is. We've got significantly more throttle, another maybe call it 20% above and beyond what Fusel had. The flow isn't 100% lined in. You saw him take a breath over there, but boy, is this boy fast. Look at that Immelman turn just flowing from one move into the other. We feel some real honk magic in that flow, and Mr. D knows how to fly that flow. Oh yeah, really looking forward to some of the OG Liftoff pilots competing in this Dquad Fixation Tournament. On the other side of the spectrum, here's a brand new pilot, Shah FPV, 14 years old, racing phenom, flying out of Pakistan. We've got, again, a bit more throttle than Mr. D and a bit more flow, a whole bunch more chaining together. Look at that Immelman there at the end is just all the throttle all the time, dialed in, no breaths. Now as we move on up the leaderboard, Shah finishing in a number 4 position over here, and he's on that Chapter 12 leaderboard, so you can see exactly why as he just smoothly goes around. It's starting to look at this level in the point in the leaderboards, it's starting to look, as Stingy would call it, everything is just an orbit. They've reduced all of this complex movement to just an orbit, and that is truly masterful piloting. Speaking of masterful pilots, you've got your number 3 for this chapter, number 2 in your overall leaderboards, G-Man FPV. There we go. Talk about dialed in, talk about efficiency of movement. Now you can really see the pedigree of the racer in G-Man FPV. The difference you can spot between that number 3 and number 4 position is an entire 6 seconds, and the reason, well, at least on a midget watching, that becomes clear, is not just more throttle, because there's certainly more throttle, woohoo, but also how dialed in it is. He's actually cutting the turns tight. He's going into those lower corners so tight to the insides of the turns, making sure that any movement he makes is forward towards the end of the lap, because who he's chasing is Finzi. Oh yeah, and he's number 2, guys. Can you believe it? Finzi is number 2 by barely a tenth of a second. Because that might have been it right there, where he took a breath in the middle. It surprises me as much as it surprises you, and as much as it surprised Finzi, I believe. All the throttle, all the smoothness. He's 2/10 ahead of G-Man, and it's an absolutely spectacular run. But you can see that one quad zipping up ahead in front of him throughout the track, maintaining that lead, and that is another OG name, Paka. This is just a clinic. This is what G-Man and Finzi were aiming for. Absolutely locked in, absolutely all the throttle, absolute efficiency of movement. Look at that. Is just one move, is just one flow. It just keeps going. It's absolutely amazing. It is your number 1 for Chapter 9, Dquad. Now, he's got some work to do to try and work his way up into that Chapter 12 leaderboard. He's not quite there yet, but there are enough points left for him to make it. There are still enough points left even for you. Chapter 10 and Chapter 11 await, and you can get on board, involved, and to the top, competing with top pilots from around the world for a dream FPV pilot dream come true, real world sponsorship from Dquad Fixation. I hope you guys enjoyed these chapter overview highlights. I certainly enjoy every month looking over all of your fantastic performances, and I look forward to you, YOU, taking part in chapter number 10 and me getting to shout out your absolutely fantastic rip. We're almost to chapter 12. Remember to lift off every day and remember to be happy. This is your boy Abdul signing out. Thanks for watching, guys. You make what make Liftoff my favorite simulator. Have a wonderful day. So the leaderboard is put the phone way away in the bathroom this time, so no harm, no danger of losing a take to the phone.